So the last video that I did on this channel that got some pretty high exposure was the video that I did called African Americans Need Africa. And that is my belief. That is my hypothesis. That is how I feel. And I recognize that everybody doesn't feel the same way. And while the world needs Africa, like literally, the world needs Africa. The content that you're seeing on the device that you're watching it on likely is made from materials directly founded in Africa. The world's agricultural system is reliant upon Africa. And if it's not yet, it will be. And so there are a million reasons why I believe that the world needs Africa, specifically that African Americans need Africa. I also feel that we need each other. That goes without saying. I don't speak from a place of others in the diaspora because I can't speak for Black, British, Black people in the Caribbean or in Canada. And while I believe we all need this continent, I speak directly from my experience and will continue to do that. And so to those that found it helpful, that found it valuable, that could relate, thank you for the support of that content. And for those that wanted to challenge that conversation, rightfully so. Everybody is not meant to come to this continent and everybody shouldn't come, right? Like, that's that, on that. And, but the reality is a lot of people are moving out of America. Whether people want to pay attention or not, the numbers are drastically rising. If you look at the State Department's data that doesn't oftentimes report what it means to be a digital nomad in today's day, because this is a new thing. People are working online and they are working remotely all over the world. The data used to be specifically for corporations that were moving their people abroad or people that were living abroad because of military service. But the numbers are increasing. Passport applications are gridlocked. Countries are gridlocked in their visa processing for foreigners looking to come there. I know because I'm applying for my visa in South Africa and they're backed up because people are leaving the US. And in this video, I want to talk about the reasons why people are leaving. And so if you're not one of them, that's fine. I'm not talking to you, but I'm talking to the people that have an interest in moving abroad, that have an interest in moving to the continent, that have been feeling this way for an extended period of time, and they want to do something about it, right? I want to talk to you, and that's who this video is for. So welcome. My name is Ashley. On my channel, Ashley in Africa, I talk about my experience moving, living, and doing business here on the continent of Africa. I am currently living in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, going on 2 years living here with my 2 girls. I share my experience of love, motherhood, and entrepreneurship. And if that sounds interesting to you, please be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so that you'll get updates when I post new content. And I took a break from, the last video, the last month. There was a lot going on. But, historically, there are many trends that happen. And when you operate in a place of higher vibration, you see things not only from an objective position, but you see things spiritually, you see things historically. And I want to address a few of those things in this video. So I have some notes and I'm going to address those. So socially, people in America, specifically Black people in America, are waking up. They're waking up to the fact that their ancestors been fighting this fight of equality and social justice for centuries. And they don't want to do it anymore. We don't want to do it anymore. One of my biggest motivators of moving to Africa was not having to explain who Breonna Taylor was to my, at the time, 9-year-old daughter. She was familiar with George Floyd because they were talking about it. In her school, online. It was everywhere. It was impossible to not hear about George Floyd or see it, right? Breonna Taylor was something that was a little bit more a little quieter because it was under the shadows of George Floyd. But I could not bring myself to tell her who Breonna Taylor was. I didn't want to. And at that moment, I also didn't want to have the conversation of what it meant to be Black in America. That she would have to make herself smaller, that she would have to work 10 times harder, that she would have to always see herself as minor or a part of a larger group, never being valuable enough or worthy enough to be a Black woman and to be seen as such and to be valued as such and to just be. Like, I just didn't want to have that conversation that was had with me, that was had with my mother. You know, you got to work 10 times harder in the room of the white. You know, there's things that Becky can do that you can't do. Becky is now today Karen. I just didn't want to have that conversation. And so many people, African Americans, are waking up to that, especially parents. When you recognize that you have to have that conversation, it takes you becoming small in that conversation to have it. Right? We don't want things for our children that we shouldn't want things for our children that we wouldn't want for ourselves, or vice versa. And so that was a big part of my motivation. And so what I see is socially, we are waking up. The conversation is being had loudly that these political parties are not in our best interests. They want our vote. These political heads, these people put at the top of these political parties that are telling us we're going to do this and this and this for the Black person, where your first Black female vice president, who y'all was skeet wheating it across the thing, talking about my vice president is Black. Where's she at? What's she doing for Black people, Black women, right? I think she has publicly said, I will not do anything for Black people specifically because it would benefit all. It was very much a tiptoey around narrative. And listen, I am grateful to have grown up in America. I am grateful for the opportunities that America has afforded me. I am also grateful to have overcome a lot of the trauma that I experienced in America. And I am grateful to have woken up to the fact that the lack of transparency, the continuous marginalization of my community, the economic disparities are not changing. They are not shifting. And yes, while the communication is larger and louder about buying Black and Black businesses, guess who is profiting off of those messages and those narratives? The distribution channels that own them, right? And so while yes, Black people are getting into Target and being sold more on Amazon, those distribution channels are not owned by us, right? So the dollar is still flowing out of our community into the hands of others that are capitalizing off of it. And so again, if that is okay with you, that's fine. Stay, by all means, do that. Stay, keep it going. But many of us are recognizing that that is just not enough and that there is more, right, outside of that structure of power. And, this also is spiritually, right? We are seeking higher vibrational content. We are seeking higher vibrational communities. We are all yearning for more spiritually. And we know that it just doesn't stop at these said religions, right? We're meditating, we're doing yoga, we're journaling, we're doing moon work. Some of us are doing sound baths, spiritual experiences that are elevating our consciousness and or taking up our vibration. And so when that happens, you can't help but notice the lower vibrational people, spirits, content that is really surrounding you. I mean, I remember one of the biggest shifts for me was my ability to watch certain things on TV. Like, I used to have a huge interest in war movies, and it was really the gore. It was seeing the bomb explode and the person's face popping off. It was like, oh, I used to love that. I used to love gory Quentin Tarantino type things. Like, I loved watching that type of content. And as I started to go higher and elevate in my spirituality and ascend, that type of content would just gross me out so much so that I started to have nightmares and I would have these negative experiences. And I was just like, oh no, I can't. This is low vibrational content. Even certain music I couldn't listen to anymore because the beat, the sound of it, the words no longer aligned with my spirit, my center, my divinity, my purpose, right? And so many of us are realizing that and having, the separation of content, relationships, family members, becoming clearer because that yearning is so real. And so that also means, wow, this community, and for many of us that are ascending in that way, we realize the US perpetuates this state of consciousness, kind of keeping people at a lower level state of consciousness, right? Like consumption, not creator, being, doer, not being, right? These are things of alignment, right? And so people are recognizing that and they're saying, this is not the life that I want. And so I'm going to seek that elsewhere. And there are so many societies outside of the US that provide and promote these states of being, not doing, the states of family, community, not consumption, creators, being creative, not just being a worker, a doer. And it's one of the major reasons why people are leaving the US. Also, historically, right? What I was learning and doing some research and speaking to just a couple different people that are in alignment with my thinking and learning from people that weren't necessarily in agreement with that was understanding the historical trends, a historical cycle. And the Great Migration, was one of the biggest movements that happened in the US. And this migration spanned several decades, but it was the largest movement of people in the US from a certain region to another region in the country. And that was when Black people left the southern states that were riddled, indoctrinated with oppression and slavery. They left. They took their families once they became freed men, left the South and migrated to the North, the East, and the West. And this happened over decades, right? And it's said to have happened from the 1910s to the 1970s. And so currently we are in 2022, where it's said that the height of that migration happened in the 1920s. And so we are in that 100th year, that historical cycle of migration when Black people said, nope, we getting up out of here. We're going to better. Our families are going to prosper. They pushed through the fear of the unknown. They pushed through the facts that some of them had to leave their family. They pushed through the fact that they didn't know what they were going to do because they had always been sharecroppers and worked on the plantation. They pushed through and they made a better way for their family. And so we trusted ourselves then to make better decisions for ourselves. And the people that are leaving the US are doing that exact same thing now, 100 years later. And so these are just the three things that I've seen that I notice that are relevant in the larger discussion of Black people leaving the US. I am speaking at the Exodus Summit this weekend, October 7th through the 10th, to over 2,000 Black women that want to make this move abroad. Not all of the women are moving or wanting to move to the continent, but many of them are. And I'm so thrilled to be able to share my experience and not only how I did that, but how I increased my influence, my income, and my impact by starting a business here on the continent. And so if you have an interest in hearing me live, please go to the link below in my bio. It's the Exodus Summit taking place this weekend, October 7th through the 10th. I'm speaking on October 8th, talking about my experience starting a business abroad. I'd love to see you there. And also you can connect with me to get different resources on ashleyinafrika.com. Book some time with me if you're interested in moving yourself and your family abroad and expanding your business abroad. I would love to work with you. And so until the next video, I'll see you soon.